Hey, what's up? Before I even get into today's video, I just want to address something real quick. So in the previous episode, I was talking about how I was preparing for a meeting with other Stinkerman board members for to meet with a new head and department of the Office of Institutional Engagement and Wellbeing, or Wellbeing and Engagement, whichever one it is, that's replacing the Office of Equity or the Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity. There's so many acronyms and words. But in that video, I kept on saying Title Six, and Title Six is actually Title Nine, and Title Nine refers to the whole thing when it comes to federal schools and federal institutions having to abide by certain federal regulations when it comes to equality of sex and race and stuff like that. So in the meeting, when the people were saying Title Nine, I was confused. I thought they skipped some numbers. Then I realized I actually looked at the Roman numerals again, and it was actually Title Nine. So that was my bad. That was my bad. But besides, I think that was really cool. So for my job, I actually have to only go into the office on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and all the other days I can actually just stay at home and just do work from there. But since I live nearby, like 10, 20 minutes walk nearby, I just walk to the office usually most days. And today was great. Before I went to office, I went to the beach, took a nice walk, and just reflected, thought about some stuff. Then went to work, and when I went to work, I was working on um, this project I want to wrap up. So the last week, what I got into like at the end of last week was to make a research poster for the upcoming research conference I'm going to in DC. And my research poster was on evaluating RAG, retrieval augmented generation, to create a framework to evaluate RAG. That's one of the projects I'm interested in, and that's one of the projects I'm working on. So now I finished the poster, submitted that. I'm going to be presenting that next week, I believe. But what I had to do now is actually build out the stuff I said in the poster. So one of the components of that was the intrinsic evaluation, which is basically how well is the RAG doing? Like, what is it pulling the right documents? Is it answering the right questions? Stuff like faithfulness, groundedness, like how grounded is it in the truth, right? So the whole day, from like the full 8 hours, I got to work on like that whole evaluation framework, and there was so many issues. There was so many stuff I had to install. There was so many stuff that actually the documentation just all over the place. All the issues, because I was using the RAGIS framework, which is like one of the ways to evaluate RAG and just like implement RAG into your system. Like a bunch of documentation was out of the place, and then sometimes you have a tutorial, and it'll be like in 2024, it's like, okay, that's like last year, right? But then the tutorial will be out of date, and like it will be complete out of date. So, like the same stuff in the tutorial wouldn't work anymore. So it's just a whole mess. However, like right before I was gonna clock out, like maybe an hour before. So I finished the project, and I have the intrinsic evaluation done. I just have to do the extrinsic one, which is basically, if I remember correctly, it's just gonna be like, oh, is the output looking good? Then you also have LLM as judge, which is basically, hey, can I get an AI to evaluate this for me? And then you have the fourth one, which is basically a feedback loop, which basically like it goes back to extrinsic evaluation, which is like, hey, give this a thumbs up, and if you give it a thumbs up, that's how I can tell the AI in real time, improve this, and if you give it a thumbs down, like, okay, improve that, blah blah blah. But I was really just excited. I think it was because usually what happens is I don't finish like a project, like I don't finish large tasks like that in a day in the 8 hour time span, because like there's always a bunch of different stuff like meetings and just like getting stuck on a really big bug or misunderstanding core components of the project. But with this one, it was like really nice, like code throughout the whole thing and just learn more and more. It was even actually a critical misstep I took where I misunderstood the core concept, but like I was able to like once I took a break and lost my tunnel vision, I was able to look and say that's weird. Let me just try and look at this in a different angle. So that was really helpful. And for the core idea that I got wrong, basically the RAGIS framework, or the RAGIS framework, one of the stuff you can do is create a test set, right? And what I was trying to do is create an evaluation data set. And the way the evaluation data set would look is that you'd have the prompt, the question, whatever you want to call it. You would have the documents that you retrieve. You would have the answers to generate, right? And with those columns, or with those stuff, right? Now you're able to give the AI data set for it to test out your RAG framework. So if it can put out the right documents, and if it can get the right answer based on the answer you've given in that data set, they can evaluate the RAG framework. I was trying to do that, but then what I got was a test set with the code I was using. I was so confused because I want the actual answer. Then I realized that I had to create the answer myself with the test set. And what I did, I just used like an AI. I used the AI I was using for a lot of my other projects to create the answers. This is an easy way to scale it. The issue though is that since I'm using AI to create the answers, this doesn't necessarily mean it's true. I do give it the context in which you should create the answers based off, and since the context isn't too large, I don't think it'll be an issue. But that's something I also want to think about. I think another thing I want to do is maybe try using like a reasoning model for that. But I actually think I'm ready to use a reasoning model. I have to double check on that. But I do think it's cool. I'm really happy with the project overall. I think that was a great thing to get done. I'm excited to work on the extrinsic evaluation and the LLM measures. I don't think those stuff are gonna be really hard. I think intrinsic was just really hard because I was trying to use a specific framework, and the hardest part was actually creating synthetic data. Synthetic data is basically instead of me like typing out one by one or getting real world data, basically just like data that's created for this purpose. Like so, it's not like something I extracted, something I created in lab, in house, and all that. And that's like that was the hardest part. But once I got that done, it was pretty easy from there. And it's easy to scale, like I said before, so that's really good. I think that was something that I remember I was talking to one of my coworkers about with the whole idea of creating like a evaluation framework. And I think with this, if I can properly improve it and like scale it, I think that could be really helpful to the team and just the company overall. So I think it's really cool to just, and since we don't have one yet, I think this is really awesome to actually have like build something new for the team and company. But yeah, I don't know. There's not much to say besides that. I've been slacking up some other stuff here and there, but I was just really happy with my work today overall. So just want to put that out there for this episode. But besides that, I have nothing else to say. So have a great day.